Cooper.
Cooper.
Well, I see his little person making faces.
What's he saying? What's he trying to say?
I'm almost there, guys.
Saying the same thing over and over.
Almost there.
No, he's saying
He's
country.
What's that?
Phil,
Hey,
Oh!
there he is. Are we supposed to be recording?
Oh, hello.
No, not yet. Let's start recording right now, though. In the next,
All right.
Right now?
Yeah.
3, 2,
Recording
1,
now?
go.
Everybody, recording.
We don't have to sync it up.
Recording
Recording.
now.
As long as we get that, I got our broadcast.
Oh, hello.
Hey, baby.
That is
Looking
a
good there.
ferocious beard, Coop.
Oh, thank you. It's my dad look.
Oh, daddy.
I did the most dad things ever today. I'm so sorry I forgot, guys, but I got off work working for the Timber Crew, listened to a little bit about some basketball podcasts on the way up to my fishing hole where I drank beer and fished until I came home to eat some pizza.
Damn.
When I got the call from Phil. I'm just living that dad life.
I was just going to say that. Yeah.
Living that dad life.
That proper dad lifestyle.
Guys, I've missed you.
Yeah.
This was really hard to figure out.
Phil, it's kind of
Well,
hard to
we've all
hear you,
got-
honestly.
Can you not hear me? How about now? What's the problem here?
I
You have the shaved face, Philip. I didn't notice that until right now.
Can you turn me up, Eric? Can you hear
Can
me
you
now?
turn me on, Eric?
Yeah.
How about now, Eric?
Yeah, it's good enough. It's good enough.
If you can, I mean, I could try to figure out something else.
No. I can hear you well enough. Don't worry. You're fine, Phil. It's fine.
Let's fucking start. We've been waiting a
All right.
long time.
Well, guys, I guess I'll captain the ship a bit.
Babel 17.
Here we go again.
White Noise by Don DeLillo. Whoa, what is that?
What is what?
There's some loud
Sounds like
white
a
noise
jet's
going
getting
on.
ready to take off.
Yeah.
Oh,
Is your maid
vacuuming or something? Who's that?
Phil?
Phil, is your maid vacuuming? Phil, is your maid vacuuming?
I cannot afford a maid. No, I'm sorry. I was trying out the headphones, but one of them is dead. I was trying to make it so Eric.
Oh, yeah, I can hear well enough. You're fine.
Okay.
All right. Well, let's start then, guys. Okay. So I guess I chose this book, so I'll kind of steer this ship.
Wait, do we have to introduce ourselves?
Oh,
I was just going to say, who are we?
Oh, yeah,
What's
yeah,
happening? It's been a long time, you guys. We forgot.
Yeah, you're right.
And we got to do alphabetical order.
Alphabetical.
I fucked up last time.
And by height.
Oh, shit. That means
It's like a ratio of some kind.
Yes. The golden ratio of all of the podcast hosts of Waste Books, brought to you by Waste Radio, brought to you by waste-division.org. Just getting those out of the way right now.
Division.
Yeah, thank you.
Right. Hell yeah.
Oh, that's nice.
All right. Well, alphabetically speaking, let's get this rolling.
I think that's me. Hi, I'm Cooper Malin.
Where the fuck are you?
And where are you from?
Oh, I'm from. I guess I'm from.
He doesn't know.
From nowhere, really. I've just been on the road for.
Sorry, where are you
so long
physically
now.
residing at?
I'm in Dixon, Montana. Beautiful Dixon, Montana.
All right. This is Dan Nichols in Bangkok.
All right. This is Eric out in Eugene, Oregon.
This is Jordan in Brooklyn, New York.
This is Phil.
I'm the only one who said my last name. I feel so stupid.
No, I said my last name.
Yeah,
I also gave out my
okay.
social security card too,
Oh,
or my
okay.
number.
All right, great.
The card I lost a long time ago. CVC 1, 2, 2. Guys, how professional is it that we not only cannot properly introduce ourselves, but we have to remind ourselves and the listeners that we do this in alphabetical order.
No. I think it's great.
It's like I said, Cooper. By episode 50, we'll have that fucking nailed.
We'll have that nailed by episode 50,
Somehow I feel like we won't.
which we'll celebrate 15 years from now.
That's about our pace. Yeah. That's about right.
Yeah.
I'll still have one kid and you'll all have 0.
Yeah, perhaps.
Let's get into this. I'm really excited to talk about this book.
Yeah, me too. I'm really glad I picked this book. Okay, so The Princess Bride, 1973 fantasy romance novel by American writer William Goldman.
It's based on the movie, right?
Yeah, it's the novelization of the movie.
No.
That's the one I read.
No.
I just read the
Podcast
script.
over.
All jokes aside, what was really fun, just like diving right into it, was that William Goldman also wrote the movie. And so whole passages of this book was lifted for the movie, which I wish I'd never seen the movie because the book was so much fun. And you knew every twist and turn, you knew everything that was going to happen. But I haven't seen the movie since reading the book for the first time.
Oh, really? I mean, you've seen the movie before, though.
Oh, yeah, so many. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I figured we all had.
Has everyone here seen the movie?
Yeah.
I haven't
Dan?
seen it once.
Yep.
Okay.
Phil, you've only seen it once?
Yeah. In school.
Oh, really?
Wow.
Oh, it's great.
I feel like for me, it was on Stars at 3:30 p.m. every day for months when I was a kid. I swear I saw it so many times on AMC coming home from school and just laying in front of the TV and watching it.
I think I
That's
owned
weird,
it.
'cause I was definitely a TV kid.
Were you a Stars kid, though?
Your
I was a
cable?
Stars kid. I was a cable kid, and I was kind of a AMC guy.
So you had a maid who came Monday through Friday, but not on the weekends.
Yeah. From when I got home from school until when I went to school.
Phil, I can barely hear you.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
You too, Dan?
Oh, there
Yeah.
you go. There you go.
Oh, there you came in loud and clear there.
Yeah? How about now?
Yeah.
You weren't opening your mouth when you were talking before.
You gotta really open the throat. Man.
Yeah, you have to open your mouth.
Quite so.
So we all watched the Princess Bride movie, and we're here to talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
Welcome to Waste Movies. 2 thumbs up. My jaw dropped when I saw this movie.
Should we just reenact it? Each pick character.
That was a subtle slam on Roger Ebert.
Got him.
Got it.
Because didn't he have his jaw removed because he just was so lame about movies?
Yep.
All right, so it's one of those. Hi, Laura. I was just thinking about Laura complains about how we take 10 minutes to actually start. This is perfect.
No, I love it. This is our style, guys.
This is our style.
Laura being Cooper's
We
name
have
first.
at least mentioned the book, so that
We have mentioned it.
Okay, well then let me guide this boat back on track, guys.
Yeah, trick.
Let's get that boat back on the track.
Back on track to the cliff of insanity.
It's boat train.
It's that boat train.
Okay, so one thing, as we mentioned, you mentioned, Coop, about this book is that William Goldman, for the movie adaptation, also helped write the screenplay. And I think one thing that was interesting about his biography is that he was a screenwriter and a playwright before he ever wrote this book.
Well, did he write? He wrote the screenplay for Butch Cassidy Sundance Kid.
Yep. All the
That's a
President's
huge
Men.
one.
Yeah, and so he was already like working in Hollywood, and I think he had written some books as well. Let me look. But I thought that lent to a really awesome, like engaging style of writing that he used in this book, because it definitely felt very theatrical in reading it, and the whole abridged style of writing he did, where he kind of cut down the in quotes cut down the
Original.
right into
Oh yeah.
actiony parts.
Let's mention that first, because when you first get the book, how the book is set up, I'm just like looking at the front page of mine, and it says The Princess Bride, S. Morgenstern's classic tale of true love and high adventure, the quote, good parts version abridged by William Goldman. So the entire conceit of the book is that William Goldman, as a kid, was read this story,
Right.
which it's like a historical novel of the country of Florin. Yeah. And so when he tried to get the book for his kid, and when he read it, he realized it was super boring. And his dad had essentially like just read to him the fun parts. So that's the whole conceit, is that he wanted to then write it for American readers, and he just cut out all the boring parts of this original, like super boring, dry, satirical text.
Historical. It seemed like it would have been written with like a lot of technical attention to like actual like family lines and shit, like something that would have been funny in the medieval times, but like.
Well, the story goes like this, right? It's like his dad used to read him this story
when he
would
was
go
sick.
to bed. Yeah, when he was a kid, and then he wants his own son to experience the magic of the story, right? So he finds a copy for him, and the kid doesn't like it. Right? That's how he finds out it's like a really long, boring tome.
Yeah.
It's because he just gives it to the kid, and the kid's like, I thought this was hot garbage. And he looks through and he's like, oh, wow, of course you did. He spends 70 pages talking about the trees of Florin. Right. Or there's one about like the wardrobe of Prince Humperdinck or something.
Yeah.
And he's like, he goes on for 90 pages to describe all the different kinds of accessories. And
what did you guys think of that tone?
I thought it was really funny and an interesting like framing of the whole thing, right? Where, especially like I was coming at this from like my framework, marriage, and it was interesting because even that dude, Don Corcoran, that I interviewed, who's a fundamentalist Christian, talked about how he was really into The Princess Bride. Kind of cited that as something that informed his personal narrative about love, I guess. Which is funny because it's a satire. Like that's I thought of it.
Well, what's interesting is like this the setup that William Goldman does in the book about his own life is completely fictional.
Yep.
Yeah.
Like he doesn't hate his kid. I don't even think he has a son. I think he has like a daughter.
He has two daughters.
And he's very much in love with his wife.
Well, are they not divorced?
No. Like he just made that all up.
Oh.
So that
but part of it was true, right? Because he talks about like Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid.
Right. Yeah.
So there's parts of it are real, but I love how he's always giving his son shit.
For being like fat, yeah.
Yeah, he's always like, my son could lose like tons of weight. He could become skinny and he'd still be fat, basically. He says.
So I need to look up about that, how he uses that as like the trope in the book, or like the kind of plot device that he's abridging a book in quotes.
Right.
Until I was done reading, and then when I like looked into it more, I was like, oh my god, he just made all of that up. Like this is like a whole plot device. And so what I read is that where he got the idea from was he has two daughters, and apparently one of them at one night before bed wanted him to read a story or make up a story about princesses, and the other wanted him to make up a story about brides. And so that's where he came up with the title and the idea. And he wrote the first two chapters, the bride and the groom. And he wrote those as if he was going to write it like a regular novel. But he said he like came to a point where he like was like had writer's block and couldn't get any further, and so he had for some reason had this idea to write an abridged book, acting as if this was an old book that he used to read. And it was like easier for him because then he didn't have to write all those nitty gritty details. He could act like those things existed, but then
Right.
just write the fun parts.
Well, and then he even is able to take it to an absurd level, right? Like first chapters where he's establishing like a bizarre time scale that's happening, where it's like after Paris and after America, but it's before. What was it? Before.
I think it was like before Paris. It was something like where Paris was a real thing, but so was like Babylon or Sumatra.
Yeah, it was all mixed
And
up.
blue jeans too. He's like, yeah, blue jeans were invented
Yeah.
long before anyone.
Yeah, he had very clever like explanations for things that obviously didn't exist at whatever time period he was trying to portray.
Personally, though, how the actual print is when you read it is in the italics is when William Goldman is then butting in to let you know about a piece he's cutting out, or there are some stretches here where he goes into actual his real life in which he's like interacting with his kid, or he's interacting with that young starlet at the pool, talking to his wife, trying to get the book. And I think I've just read so much of this like late 70s, early 80s, like super dry, sarcastic humor. I think of like early Tom Robbins, where I just can't do it anymore. And so I found myself reading his like italicized personal asides to the reader very frustrating, where I was just like, yawn, seen this, like been here, done that.
I can see that. And it's funny because he would use those portions to be like, I cut out some really wordy, dense, like boring stuff, and he like would tend to get kind of wordy and dense with those sections sometimes.
Right. I mean, I like the original, the conceit of it being this huge long text that his Florinese father, which is a made up country, who could barely speak English, they didn't really get along, but he read him this story once when he was sick with pneumonia. I thought that was like a touching and a really nice idea, and the dad himself was the one who abridged it for the kid. He's the one that originally cut out all the boring stuff. That's why William Goldman in this fictional universe didn't know about all the boring stuff until he saw it much later when he was an adult. I enjoyed that. I think I just got really tired of this sort of like
ironic.
Yes, it's like ironic, self-aggrandizing humor. Because I really, the Princess Bride story itself it's so much. It reminded me why I love the movies. It was such a fun story.
Well,
yeah, go ahead, Jordan.
Are you sure?
Yep, go.
Okay. I was going to say that I felt the opposite way a lot of times, where I got sick of the kind of fanciful fantasy parts. I'm not a big fantasy guy in the novel, but when he would come in with the italicized parts that was in his voice, and there would be these digressions, to me they were always welcome, because I was so surprised at how, I mean, this was published in 1973, and the level of irony that he's capable of, I thought, was pretty ahead of its time. That kind of tone is just so comfortable nowadays in the 21st century. It was a good way to like have commentary on storytelling in general, and was entertaining to me. And it also was nice, sort of confusing that idea that Morgenstern was a real person when he's obviously not, and the ways that he could convince you that he was real. And I was convinced he was real until I went online after reading 50 pages.
Right.
But it is believable to a certain degree for quite some time.
Well, then it does that thing where it makes you believe in the S. Morgenstern until you're like, no way, this isn't real. But then it makes you believe the story that William Goldman's telling about his own life, which is super not just as not real as the Morgenstern story, which I can appreciate as this sort of like Kaufman, Andy Kaufman-esque style like prank, where it's like, I'm going to be honest with you, but by being honest, I'm telling just a bunch of lies on top of all the other fictional lies that I'm telling you.
And I like the tone. He seemed pretty unpretentious, especially in the when the fictional accounts of his family. Like he's not afraid to take the piss out of himself. Like when he portrays himself as in a family situation where his son doesn't give a shit about him and his wife. She's like a famous psychologist. So she's
Child psychologist or child psychiatrist.
Right. So she's like always reading into everything he says, and they have a loveless marriage.
It's very Freudian. See, I hated that. I cannot stand that sort of like. I read him almost as a Woody Allen character, and I have a hard time, like, watching those characters in movies or books where it's this weird like I'm aware of myself in my shitty situation, but I'll do nothing to change it. And I'm like, oh god.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah, like the self-aware scumbag.
The uber self-aware person who will do nothing to change their own status in life.
Mm-hmm.
Like he's just a total cuck. I have to hang out with alpha.
I guess just like I guess as a screenwriter, I expected him to have.
All I'm saying is I talked to my friends on our Red Pill, and they all agreed with me that this book is just like a total soy boy cuck book, and I don't know why I wasted my time reading this.
A soy boy cuck book.
I bet William Goldman's skull was so shallow.
You watch your tone.
I looked at his skull and like he didn't.
You want to swab the poop deck?
I had to go there.
That's fine. What were you gonna say, Dan?
No, I was just gonna say that coming from the guy who wrote the screenplay for the Sundance Kid, I mean, nice, Philip. He could have come off. You're fine. He could have come off way more pretentious and arrogant. I thought. I don't know. I just kind of assume anyone who works in movies has their head up their ass.
Yeah,
and he didn't really come across.
He's very modest.
That. Yeah.
Should we watch Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid real quick?
Or waste the movie?
Sure, put it on. Yeah.
All right, guys. If you're listening, we're gonna pause it here. Go and listen, or go watch Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, and then we'll come back.
We could just do a reaction podcast as we're watching together.
That movie was so good. I love Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid after watching it with you guys.
We watched it.
And we're back.
Wow.
That's Hollywood magic right there.
Yeah. I personally, I agree with you, Dan. I didn't feel like he was pretentious. I think he played on my absurd sensibilities a lot. I am very much into fantasy and like in my own writing feel like I write very absurdly and look at the world that way. So I think this book really tickled my fancy personally because he was being outwardly absurd and not trying to place absurd things in the real world, but making his world a little bit absurd so that these absurd ideas could fit. And for me, I could not put the book down, and like every part, whether it was him talking about his own life and I didn't realize it was all a farce until I was done reading it. And then I was like, oh my fucking God, he just tricked me. I didn't even look up anything about it. Trick the trick.
Right. It's much more of a spoof on like fairy tale romance stuff than like the movie, right? Because the movie has jokes. The movie has like, it's a humorous movie, but it's not the same as it doesn't have the same tone as the book. Where like I remember one of the first things that struck me is like when he first describes Prince Humperdinck. He's like, Prince Humperdinck realized he was the age to get married, so he called a conference with his parents, and he's like, all right, I guess it's time to get married. Let's choose one and get it over with.
Right.
I don't know. Like, it just seemed much more ironic or more of a spoof than the movie did. Because the movie did seem, at the end of the day, it was still kind of faithful to itself as a romance.
Well, the huge difference being I was surprised by this. We all know how the movie ends. It ends happy. The book doesn't end happy. In fact, he alludes to the fact that what he told us is not how the book actually ends.
Right.
And the book actually ends in another series of like ironic and absurd twists that lead the reader being like, oh, they didn't get away just fine. None of that, like nothing was happy about the ending. But, as he points out, I'm not trying to make this a downer, understand. I mean, I really do think that love is the best thing in the world, except for cough drops. But I also have to say, for the umpth time, that life isn't fair. It's just fairer than death. That's all. That's what he leaves us with in the book, and you would not get that if you would just watch the movie.
No,
because
no,
if you remember, like he gives us like, and then they all rode away on the white stallions, and then he goes just to what was it?
Oh, I found it right here. Here, may I? It's
yes,
right
please.
before the end. All right, so I think they're riding on the white horses, and the Buttercup looked at him. Oh my, Wesley, so do I.
Stop real quick. Go to the paragraph before where he like sets it up. He goes, "The truth was, my father was fibbing."
Okay, yeah, all right. The truth was, my father was fibbing. I spent my whole life thinking it ended that way, up until I did this abridgment. Then I glanced at the last page. This is how Morgenstern ends it. So his father told him that it ends just like
how we all know.
After. Right.
Yep.
All right, Buttercup looked at him. Oh my, Wesley, so do I. From behind them, suddenly, closer than they imagined, they could hear the roar of Humperdinck. Stop them! Cut them off! They were admittedly startled, but there was no reason for worry. They were on the fastest horses in the kingdom, and the lead was already theirs. However, this was before Inigo's wound reopened and Wesley relapsed again, and Fezzik took the wrong turn, and Buttercup's horse threw a shoe, and the night behind them was filled with the crescendoing sound of pursuit.
Yep.
And that's it. That's how it ends.
Well, and if you think about it, when you said like his father, like the line that said my father was fibbing, he had cut stuff out for his son. I think another reason they did that in the movie is because the whole plot device with the movie is that the grandpa is reading to his kid, and that's how you're getting the story. Remember, it's like the kid is sick.
You mean Columbo?
Yeah, is that who it is?
Yeah, it's Columbo.
It's Fred Savage, isn't it, as a kid?
Yeah, the kid is Fred Savage, and the guy's Columbo.
Yeah, and so
Wait,
that
what?
makes sense. Yeah, you didn't know it's from Wonder Years?
And they loved the Cubs.
I don't know who Fred Savage is.
Type it
Oh,
in.
right. I remember that.
Yeah, well, and so that's kind of an interesting idea that he ended the movie the way in the happy ending. Obviously, it's a Hollywood movie, but also because they're using the device of the grandpa reading to the kid, just like he had his dad reading to him in the book, who told him it was a happy ending.
Right, because in the movie, the dad died of AIDS. Right? Because it was like the late 80s, I think.
87.
And then
Yeah.
the dad was a closet gay.
He was a closet gay who frequented saunas in the Chicago meatpacking district.
Oh, I missed that part. Is that an epilogue?
Yeah, I got this weird like Albanian cut that I watched. They were all actors who didn't look like they were in the actual movie, but I just ignored that.
We're like, all right, this is legit.
Ah, cool. Thanks for the subtitles. I would have never got what's going on.
Well, maybe let's transition from that.
Well, because it's I was thinking about how we would talk about, just to move on, I was thinking about how we would talk about this, and it's difficult because I don't think many people have read the book. But so much has not been changed from what is in the movie.
Literally, like when I was reading the book, like a lot of the dialogue I remember from the movie.
Yeah, exactly.
I could hear it in the actors' voices.
Yes. That was a big problem for me because I loved it. I fell in love with the story. Like you, I read this so quick. It was I just kind of flew by it. And I kept thinking when I'd come across these lines that I'd known, I'm like, I wish I had not seen the movie because this would seem like such a really fun book just to pick up.
Totally.
And like, I had all the lines. I knew what was coming. The Man in Black, like I was wondering, I wonder if you would think the Man in Black was not in fact Wesley if you had never seen the movie, because he does a good job of just being like, Wesley's dead,
right?
And now there's just this Man in Black. Obviously, you can kind of do an A to C. The B he kind of hid. But I was like, I wonder if I would be a little bit more like curious or surprised when it's revealed that it's Wesley who's the Man in Black who was hunting her to save her from the three,
right? As
opposed to just being like, oh, that's Wesley. I know I know everything that's gonna happen.
That's a good point. Because the movie is such a cultural staple for our generation, I feel like.
It's huge, right? Like, I don't know. it would surprise me if I met a person who had never at least at one point seen parts of The Princess Bride. It is such a huge like cornerstone for a lot of pop culture.
All you have to say is marriage.
Exactly. Which is literally in the book too. Like that's also in the book.
As you wish.
Yes.
What are the other memes of Princess Bride?
Never get involved in a land war in Asia.
That's brilliant. Yeah.
I wanted to talk about how the movie and the book are different, though. Like, as much as they are similar.
Yeah.
And I haven't seen the movie for a second, so you guys will have to help me out. But,
it's also been a second for me too.
Yeah.
But I have a pretty good memory.
For example, does the movie have like part of the whole intro where the guy like hates his son, kind of, and like
No.
It's
so that's something that's missing.
So the whole setup is that you're watching it as just based on the book. Fred Savage is essentially playing a young William Goldman because the whole premise is that he gets sick with pneumonia. He's in bed, he's bored, and his grandpa comes and reads him the story, and that's all we know. There's no like meta New York publishing life in Hollywood.
And that's like natural enough because that would be kind of hard to canon.
That'd be pretty hard to film.
But like, I think this goes to a larger thesis that I am maybe developing. So like another thing that's missing from the movie, I think from shit I looked up when I was kind of just bored, like looking things up on Reddit or whatever. I don't think the discussion of like all the different beauties in the world that like fell before it came down to Buttercup.
No, which I actually enjoyed. It was an interesting idea of like beauty in the world in which like there is a definitive like number one.
It's
number
hilarious.
Two. Yeah, it's very funny.
Like that there's like a top 20 ranked, like they're fucking baseball players or something.
And how everyone just knows, and like when they move rankings too, it's just like a thing that people are like, oh yep, now she's number 6.
I also read it as like a writer thinking, I'm like, that's the most brilliant, lazy writer thing. You don't have to actually ever describe Buttercup. You just have to say, oh, she's really the number one beautiful beauty in the world. And like the reader then gets to imagine that.
Well, he does say autumn hair.
Yeah, no, he does like some very base descriptions of her, so you have an idea, but he just can just say she's the most beautiful person in the world, and everybody knows it because everybody has this intrinsic understanding of who's like on the leaderboard. Just like everybody understands like who's now on like the NBA all team. You know what I mean? Like who got snubbed, who got flubbed, who gets the max contract, who lost it because they didn't get voted in. Just classic basketball talk. You know what I mean?
Dude, driving going to the Pelicans, fuck yeah.
Welcome to Dad Corner. Who's gonna win in 6? Is it the Raptors? Is it gonna be the Milwaukee Bucks? Who knows?
Who cares?
Actually, I do want to check who did win that game tonight. It's a tied series. It's pretty intense.
Okay.
So the other thing that's different, as we talked about, is the endings, right? And like, so I think it's, I don't know, maybe interesting. Go ahead, Trick.
Oh, also they didn't do like the backstories for Fezzik and Inigo. In the movie. You know, because they have pretty long scenes in the book of like showing them growing up and why Fezzik is so good at fighting and like why he has this drive and why Inigo is like such a good swordsman and stuff. And which I actually really enjoyed some of those scenes of it. Like I think his characterization of these people was just really good and silly and
added depth.
And he's really good at crafting like plots. I feel like there were so many plots within this plot that you know, it kind of was a fun, varied experience.
No, totally. When I was reading this, I couldn't help but think, I was like, well, when I came into this, I had like just seen only a little bit of the story, but as I read, there was so much beneath it, and I realized like this whole story was kind of like an iceberg in which you only get to see the top 10%, and then there's like 90% of the iceberg. It's just underneath the water, and you don't ever really get to see it.
The movie was like the tip of the iceberg.
Damn it, that one took me a second. I
thought And today, this episode's Iceberg brought to you and sponsored by.
Oh, are we getting sponsors? Are we getting paid yet? Are we
Uh,
getting
everyone.
sponsored by Icebreakers? Is it the gum?
Do you know how to break the ice?
This was a short book. There was a lot packed in here. My copy was 283
Oh,
pages.
really? My copy is like 440 pages.
But you also have the
19,
large
yeah.
print for slow readers.
Like old person.
Ah.
Well, it's got
You're
like
a bad eye.
simple
Did yours
notation
include?
written above it.
Coop, did yours include Buttercup's baby?
No, mine did not, huh?
Okay, see, mine does.
Yeah. Did you guys read that?
I did.
You did? Because it's like the unfinished sequel. Like he's never.
Well, he found Morgan Stern's documents somehow. In fuck me, Florin, in the real Florin, because Florin's actually a place you can go to still.
What?
Did they talk about that in the part that you guys read?
Well, I
The
think
Stephen King is from Florin. His family's from
No,
Florin.
yeah, I think that's all Buttercup's baby, but that shit was hilarious.
Yeah, it was very
Stephen
funny.
King's family's from Florin?
Yeah, because so
Not
he was
Stephen
going
King,
to.
just his family.
Yeah,
He was
Stephen
supposed-
King plays a part. Anyway, sorry, keep going.
Yeah, he was supposed to write the screenplay because he's of Florinese heritage, but he knew that Goldman should write it, and then they have a conversation. He's like wearing like a lumberjack flannel, and
That's
he's like,
amazing.
oh, that literally sounds like what Stephen King would say right now.
That's so good. I'm actually reading Stephen King right now. He is like I just like go to him in times of trouble.
Yes.
Is it?
We should do a Stephen King book. I'm gonna suggest that the next
I
time.
just bought The Shining, actually.
Oh, The Shining's so good.
Yeah,
That'd be
my
fun.
second time.
Just a little bit of horror.
It's a good cover.
Are we calling it
Let
Coop
me
on this
shit.
one already?
Yeah, that's it, guys. Thanks for tuning in. Next week, it's The Shining by Stephen King.
Next week.
That would be fun.
From now on, we should only do books that have movies associated with it.
So our listeners don't have to read.
All
Yeah.
right, guys, get ready for a Harry Potter series then.
Oh, God.
I'm just gonna read
fuck.
all of the Game of Thrones.
There we go.
Oh,
No.
We're only like 15 years too late to actually like be making money off this.
right.
We could
Um,
do like a deconstruction after the show is done. Be like,
Oh, there we go.
This is all so stupid,
How a
no, I
global
thought you were a
phenomenon
fan.
crashed.
and we knew it all along.
No, you said you were a big fan.
I was into it, man, and then they fucking tanked the thing.
No,
How did it-
shh.
How did they? No, okay, never mind.
I can't. No, I'm not caught up, and I want it to be authentic.
I'm just curious about what. Okay, I'm not going to tell Phil to continue talking, but I'm just curious how
Yeah.
he interprets it as tanking.
But
But later.
They had
It's
a
just
lot
based,
of,
it's the,
a lot of threads built up after 7
yes.
seasons, and
Yeah.
then they
All right.
tried to do it in like 6 episodes, and it didn't work out that well. And I'm really
I
I
sad
just
that
don't under,
White Walkers fucking rule all of Middle Earth.
God damn it!
I just
Phil.
don't understand how a girl can get that powerful that quickly. You know
Are
what I
we really
mean?
talking about this right now? Because like, I
Oh
don't.
my God.
Eric
Like-
wants his disappointment to be his
Yeah,
own.
thank you.
His
Also,
request.
we're not even. We're doing a.
What's up with Captain Marvel? Like, how is she that powerful?
Smooth,
Daenerys
smooth.
is Captain Marvel all along.
So just maybe we should just kind of talk a little bit about plot.
Oh, you guys
or
want to
at
talk
least-
about the book again?
At least
cool.
some central,
Oh,
Basketball.
cool. Thanks. Yeah,
at least some
I didn't-
central
I think
characters.
I picked this book. I don't know.
Who was your favorite characters? Let's do that.
Yeah, I
Well,
thought, okay.
well, let's talk about who we have. So we have Buttercup. Then we have Wesley, who is like their indentured servant,
The Man in Black.
the Man in Black, aka the
Good,
Man in
very
Black.
good.
We have Prince Humperdinck, who rules or is soon to rule over Florin. We have the Count Rugen, his right-hand man, who is played by Christopher Guest in the movie. Christopher Guest of like Spinal Tap fame, of
Best in show.
Best in show. What's the
There's
that Christopher
waiting,
guess?
Waiting for Guffman. Have you guys
Waiting
seen
for Guff. Yes,
that?
that's a
fucking
classic.
great one. Yeah.
He plays
Oh my
a nasty. Oh, Phil, so cute.
Sorry,
Is that your new one?
I did it to distract you guys because you started talking about the book.
Why did you get another animal?
You're a
I
masochist.
like them.
It's just gonna die.
Yeah, it's just gonna
You're
die.
right.
You should kill it now on the podcast for ratings.
I was gonna let her grow.
Yeah,
for
there
a
we
year.
go.
I was gonna let her grow for a year and then.
Like let her grow strong for a year.
I wanted her to get fat.
She's really cute.
Her name is Cleo, and she's Domingo's substitute.
I like how her head moves.
Yeah, her head moves really
Looks
cool.
like, E.T.
It would move. It'd move better if it wasn't connected to the body.
I would turn her into a rich piece.
We need something to ignite the ratings on this podcast. We need listeners, guys.
Maybe we should
Kill
like
this kitten online.
we'll update it onto live stream. We should put all of our podcasts onto live stream.
you know what might help? Talking about what we're supposed to talk about.
So we have Inigo, the swordsman.
Yeah.
He's
Sorry,
from
not to be a dick,
Spain.
but guys, we're kind of like
Spain.
not even talking about the book.
Well,
I just
you're
remembered
right.
live.
And we have
I just
Physique
thought of live stream and it bummed me out.
From Turkey. The strongest
right.
man in the whole wide world.
Keep going,
Hey.
George.
AKA Eric not Eric Andre.
Eric Andre.
Fuck.
Eric
I
Andre.
can't keep it together for shit.
The worst show on television.
Eric Andre plays Fezzik.
Eric Tonis, why are you mad at us? You're the one that's failing to fucking lasso us in here.
Yeah, you need to lasso us more tightly.
I have tried multiple times.
All right,
Well, try more. We were just doing characters. Cooper, you're doing a really good job, and then I brought my kid now.
Yeah. So fuck you, Phil.
Yeah, fuck you too.
When's the last time you guys have been on live stream?
I don't even know what that is.
Oh, it's a website where you can watch a lot of beheadings and cartel murders. It's like what you do to desensitize yourself when you're 14 and you're just like, I like watching these videos. And then by the time you're 18, you just watch them without blinking. Because it's cool. Call of Duty Online makes you cool.
All right. Anyways,
The characters, who's your favorites?
Yeah, you haven't answered your favorite.
No one's answered.
Because he's
I've said
industrial.
Inigo like so many times. I love Inigo.
I said
Okay.
What'd you say, Jordan?
I said Inigo, and I said it first.
Shit. I guess I like Buttercup.
This is like if we're on the playground right now, or 8 years old.
Yeah, exactly.
I am Inigo.
I really like Fezzik because he
I
likes.
like Fezzik too, man.
He's bizarre because he always rhymes everything to like remember things, and I think that's kind of funny.
Because he's on the spectrum.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, I think that's what a modern contemporary audiences would say. He's on the spectrum. I think earlier they say he's just fucking slow.
I think they used to call him just slow, but now we would say
Yeah.
he's on the spectrum.
Yeah, I think
Yeah,
that's
he's a bit of a mongoloid.
The boy's got mush for brains, but he's strong as an ox.
What was the Sicilian's name?
I think you're just the Sicilian.
Benzini.
Oh yeah, Vizini.
Vizini or
Vizzini.
Benzini.
Okay. I like the scenes with him involved. Like he was maybe not my favorite character, but I thought it was always when Inigo and Fezzik are always like anytime Vizzini leaves them, they're like, oh shit, we can't think about this. Like,
Yes.
Like, oh, we just don't have the mental resources to plan out where to go or what to do. Like, we just
Well, because they end up hooking up with Wesley, the Man in Black, later, right?
That's after, but before how we're introduced to them is those
Yeah.
that trio, they've been hired to kidnap Princess Bride, the Princess Buttercup, make it look as if the Gildians, the Gildarians,
Yeah, like that's like their rival country.
exactly.
Yes.
and so they're like hired swords who are supposed to kidnap the princess, take her to the border, and kill her before the Man in Black mysteriously saves her. So that's how we are first set up with them. They become like big players in the story, but as it stands right now, the Sicilian is the smartest man on Earth. He's hired Fezzik, the strongest man on Earth, and Inigo, the
Best swordsman.
I laughed every time it mentioned it because he created this new spectrum where he said there's not just masters, there's wizard swordsmen.
And Inigo was a wizard.
He was a wizard, which was like the best swordsman you could be. And I don't know, it gave me a chuckle because it was just so silly for some reason.
No, totally.
Well, the whole time he's training to become a master, right?
Right,
When he
right.
asks that guy, he's like, "No, you're not a master. You're a wizard."
You're a wizard,
better.
Inigo.
You're a wizard.
It's like way cooler, bro. Masters are like so lame.
2000 late.
Yeah, I mean, Hogwarts alumni shirt I have on right now. Yeah, I'm a
Hey,
wizard.
there we go. You can buy that on our website.
No,
Way
no.
stashed.
We don't want to get any weird legal shit.
I also am selling earbuds and Yeezys.
Snuff films of Eric,
Yeah.
Chris Cat.
You can
Never
find the
know
live
why.
stream of this on our website for $9.99 a month.
Cooper's.
Please, I need diapers for my baby.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. Your Kickstarter wasn't working out that well, so now you're just
No.
selling everything you can get your hands on.
Through the Waste Division store.
Yeah, exactly.
As
You guys
part
all
of our-
get.
As part of our Patreon deliveries, you just get like parts of a dead kitten in the mail.
Yeah. Y'all are gonna get subpoenaed because it's gonna be on y'all's credit cards.
Sure, according to
A
these
donation
records,
of $10 will give you an ear.
you purchased a leg of one orange and white striped kitten.
Guys, this is our last podcast on the real web. From now on, we'll be streaming on the dark web just to make a little bit more money. You can visit us on the Tor website browser to find us at www.
Cooper's selling his left eyeball as part of our Patreon.
You can watch it too. Inigo is definitely my favorite character, though.
Why?
But what's interesting was they changed like the scars on his face. That's a change because
How so?
in the movie he has like they're running down his cheekbones, and it's like very cool and like very sexy. But in the book, it describes it as like two parallel bars just like running down his face,
Yeah.
which would be weird to see.
Yeah.
Oh, is everybody's recording still going?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Did you check?
Yep.
Okay. So the scars. Sorry.
Yeah, I keep going back to like how much we want to talk about. Like, I'd be curious what motherfucker out there has no idea what we're talking about. Like, who doesn't know this story?
I have a question.
Yeah,
This might be interesting. This might maybe focus this a little bit more.
we
you guys,
desperately need that.
Ever consider this postmodern at all?
Yeah.
You'll have to give me a rundown on what like would be defined
That's-
as postmodern.
Well, Phil, you have an opinion.
Well,
You always do.
When doesn't he have an opinion? This should be called filthy talk. You know what I'm saying?
here, are you done? I'm about to talk. But seriously, fuck you, Cooper.
The greatest part is I've talked for like 40 minutes in this 47-minute podcast,
Yeah, that is.
and I'm gonna get on
And-
you for being a filthy talk.
And you have red hair too.
I can never
There's
escape
always
that
that.
shame. I can never escape the shame.
So I don't know. Like I thought that what's interesting about the Hollywood thing leaving out that intro is that that intro is kind of a whole deconstruction of the Hollywood thing, which is the rest of the story. Like it was really interesting for me to think about that shit with Dawn and how like a lot of people might have watched this movie, and because of what was left out, like important little things that were left out, didn't really see how much of a parody it was of the whole like romantic picture. And so like people watched it, and this is sort of a problem of satire, right? Like especially Cooper, you recommended, I'm going to go ahead and blame it on you, that I listened to this podcast Come Town, which is just like very hardcore satire, like very off the wall, super inappropriate, very problematic.
Come Town.
Like C-Town? Okay.
Yeah. And they're like, it's very heavy satire, but if you like take anything they say out of context, they sound like the worst people on the planet. And so, like, the whole thing with satire is that you could be making fun of a thing, but people might watch it and actually think that what you're making fun of is the serious thing. Like, people will watch The Simpsons and see Homer being a fucking fat ass dad, and then see their own dad being a fat ass dad, and then just thinking that that's normal, and then not actually realizing that it's satire.
Right.
So if you take that same framework with The Princess Bride, people might watch the movie that's supposed to be heavily satirical with like a postmodern deconstruction built in the intro, which has a guy whose marriage seems to be falling apart. Because I think even in like the other intro, he wrote about how he was still married to that wife at the time. Like, did he even do a further fictional thing in the like 20th anniversary thing?
Yeah, they separated.
Mm-hmm.
So they actually separated
in the Buttercup's baby. Yeah.
Which is again like a fake wife. Like it's not even his real wife's name.
Yeah. Okay. So anyway, it seems like if you don't have that intro, it doesn't like explode the same way.
Right.
And that seems to be an important level of the satire, because it undermines far more of like the romantic picture than people seem to think that the movie does.
I feel like the book feels less romantic than the movie does.
Yeah, the movie is heavily sardonic, but people like watch The Princess Bride and they think it's funny, but they don't think that it's like a fucking big ass joke on how stupid like marriage is, for example.
The book is sardonic.
Right,
So
they
Phil,
basically start out the book.
Phil, did you see this as an attack on monogamy?
No. A demolishing of monogamy.
I saw it as a demolition. It's the word that I really
Oh, okay, sure.
No, but it was interesting for me to read it, because when I was reading, I was expecting to find like that romantic picture because of like what I've been talking about with like Dawn or other people, and like, what I found was a far more ironic one that was like included this top 20 fucking hottest women, like hottest princesses, which is just like so gross and like pretty funny too. But like, if you had that in the movie, people would be like, oh, I don't know if I actually want to be Princess Buttercup. Like, that's kind of gross to be put into that kind of structure. Like, be a top 20 woman. Fuck that.
No, totally.
I like that Buttercup's lack of intelligence is always being referred to.
Right.
That's right.
Like,
right.
People want to be Buttercup too.
Right. Well, in the movie, it's just kind of like, you know, that's something that's not really made clear. It's just like Buttercup is like the beautiful heroine, right?
Well, she's pretty, so it doesn't matter.
Right, but in the book, it's like there are times he'll talk about her thinking process and how it's like not up to par.
Right.
And yeah, you never get that in the movie. It's funny.
No,
Do you think, though, more directly at Phil, but do you think that the book is really that much of a satire on love, or like romantic notions of love? Because a lot of it seems to be like escapism for the sake of escapism, and that realm is its own realm, but it's also something that seems to be highly glamorized in a lot of respects. Like, even though a lot of this is absurd and implausible, it's still about attempting these great acts for another person.
Well, as somebody who knows about Frankfurt type media thought, Jordan, like, is there such a thing as escapism just for escapism's sake, or like?
No, I'm not. No, I'm just saying that seems to be what William Goldman is expounding.
Sure.
I'm just saying that's what.
Right, but it's also a story that he's handing to his son, and like that will probably some shit to his son, right? So, like,
yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
There's a lineage thing where that's just kind of interesting to have this guy read.
Yeah. I mean, maybe you could argue that it's packaged as a love story, but at the end you learn that love is not all it's cracked up to be. I mean,
I don't know, because I don't know if it's saying that love's. I mean, they still end in love.
Yeah.
The story doesn't make you ever second guess the love that Wesley and Buttercup have for each other.
Right.
It just makes you. No. I mean, the ending of the book is that life isn't fair, not that love as we understand it is based upon weak foundations. Because I would argue that he constantly is like building up the foundations of Wesley and Buttercup's love. Like that is never made to feel unrealistic.
Like when he's being tortured, he puts himself away and only thinks of her, and that's how he's able to handle such horrible pain.
Yes. And then even Buttercup's decision to marry Humperdinck was that she has made the decision after hearing that Wesley died on the coast of Carolina because of the dread pirate Roberts. She would never love again, so she'll just go with whatever happens in life.
Yeah. But even like her falling in love with Wesley wasn't like your classic fairy tale like love at first sight. Like he was the stable boy for her family, and she was actually really mean to him, and like actually kind of was a little bit of an introvert, always riding her horse by herself, and even kind of disliked Wesley until like there's this one scene where she all of a sudden miraculously realizes she actually has loved him all this time. And so that was like, I felt like that like was a little different than your classic fairy tale like love at first sight type thing that he was trying to be satirical about.
Except there's a lot of medieval like knight stories that are also about how a poor person can rise the ranks of society through love.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
So that's not that far.
Did you guys like how the name of the horse was Horse because Buttercup doesn't have any original thoughts?
Yep. That was really good.
But how many have you guys met people like that? Like
definitely.
I've met so many people that name their cats Cat. Like, are you fucking kidding me?
With the K?
No, but part of the joke is that it's not original. That's part of it.
Right. No, I don't know. I guess I've just met.
It's not a genuine name.
Sure, but people do that. That I don't know. I thought it was
they do. I just think you're looking for reasons to be mad, Dan.
Usually, yes.
Yeah, Dan, would you calm down? Jesus.
Calm.
It's just a goddamn cat, okay?
I've been triggered by the lack of an original name for this horse.
Because what's really interesting about this, what's interesting is when we started to talk about this idea of irony and absurdity and postmodernism, my mind, because it kind of has at points a similar tone as to Voltaire's Candide, which I only thought of until this conversation started to happen. But in Candide, he is constantly hammering home the irony and the satire that he's making. I mean, you can never read that book and not understand that it is a satire of his era. Whereas in this story, I would be hard-pressed. Like, find me a character in this whose journey or story is not genuine. Like, where's the satire that he's making or irony he's making when it comes to Inigo?
Yeah, I don't think this is a satire. I just want to really quickly say that I think it's Morgenstern's book, The Princess Bride, is a satire on Florinese culture, which has nothing to do with what we're really interested in.
But we never even see that.
Yeah, because it's boring and we don't care and it doesn't apply to us anymore.
Right.
But, I mean, whether or not you want to make it meta and then say, oh, if everything's a satire, then Goldman's also making a satire. And you seem to say that it's like some kind of a love interest or like romantic love or fantasy. It's like a satire on fantasy.
Yeah,
Is that debatable?
But it's also fantasy though, so I don't know how much is it really satire if it really is just a love story. Because the other thing I wanted
That's
to say
where
is
I'm at.
there's so many situations where like we seem to be thinking that they're gonna die at the end, and then like it was all a fucking joke. But also, is it though? Because they've been in these situations throughout the whole story, so why wouldn't they just be randomly saved? And I'll also tell you, after reading Buttercup's Baby, they are saved.
Right.
Whether or not that matters because that was written 25 years later, and that's
Right.
I don't know if that's the integrity of the novel is the same.
Well, and he's always in his asides with the abridgment parts. Like he'll say stuff like, "Well, obviously they're going to get out of this," and like, or like, "I had to ask. I got so frightened that I had to ask my dad, are they getting out of this or whatever?" And so he's always making it clear that you're reading a fantasy novel. This is a long book. They're going to get out of these situations.
Yeah.
But it's set up as such a comedy with his like parenthetical statements right off the bat, and like his insertions as an author.
That's where I got frustrated.
Yada yada yada. Well, I know, but that's a serious aspect of the tone of the book. Is that?
But then
the
actual story he's telling, what about that is a satire on the fantasy story? Because he just wrote like a pure fantasy story.
Well, it doesn't matter. Like you can't separate the two.
I think it's more of a satire, not just fantasy, because fantasy is such a wide spectrum of genre. It's more like a satire of a fairy tale, like a princess fairy tale. Like think Disney princess.
Yeah.
Like think because by that time there had already been Sleeping Beauty, Snow White, and Cinderella in some of those movies from Disney. So it's almost like a satirization of like the typical Disney princess type movie. Because
that's where I'm at.
But I
it's
feel
much more edgy than like those Disney movies we grew up on.
There has to be a subversion. There has to be like a subversion of expectations when it comes to a satire like this, but there's not.
What do you mean the ending doesn't come out happy?
But we just find out that it in fact does, and like it doesn't matter.
No, but he just is like, yeah, well, it probably doesn't end happy, but like we could say it ends happy. That's literally how it ends.
If you do a Friends satire and you just remake Friends, you're not allowed to say that it's a satire of Friends because you're not subverting expectations.
He didn't just remake it. Like he told it with these like you can't just brush those off, Cooper. Like the point I was trying to make a couple times is that you can't separate the story and the way that the story is told. The way the story is told informs how the story comes out and how we think of it. So like even though he wrote just a fantasy story about like a princess, he also told it in a way that like undermined a lot of its fundaments.
Right, love at first sight.
I would argue. Well, and I wouldn't say that's a fundament because, like I said, I don't think that's necessarily part of like romantic literature. But it's very romantic to think about a rags to riches story by somebody falling in love with.
Right.
Well, it feels as if the fictional writer of this story found it in a time of his life in which he needed this true love story. I don't think he's because the author of this story is not creating the story, so he's not.
Yes, he is. It seems like he just made it the fuck up.
No,
which author are we talking about?
The fictional William Goldman, whose life is falling apart. He's living this like bullshit bougie New York like. Oh no, like he didn't create Princess Bride. He's writing it because he needs that sort of story in his life right now. So he's abridging it.
And for his progeny, right?
I mean, no, because he abandons it. He realizes that his son's never going to read this fucking book. His son's a dopey, fat butterball. So he's writing this for himself. He needs this in his life. His marriage is falling apart. He's like successful, and it's that like green light of Gatsby, where it's like
of it being like a highly artificial aspect of his own. Like
no,
psyche.
it makes him more sad that he needs this so bad that he will like retell a fairy tale from his father's homeland to make himself feel better about his own life. This fictional Goldman. I don't think Goldman, when he wrote Princess Bride, was just truly writing like a fantasy story. I don't think he was trying to like subvert anything. Because again, I would argue that you cannot call it a satire if you're not subverting the outcome. That doesn't work. You can't do that.
Jordan, can you weigh in? You're a cousin.
Well,
Brian's
well,
talking
this is hard because I've God, this is just whispers. Uh,
It's just whispers.
I don't know. I don't know. I mean, like I feel that you can create a piece of art that some people can misinterpret it and take it sincerely, while other people that understand the codes can see that it is a satire. And I didn't think that before, but now I'm starting to think that, which technically makes both of you right in a way.
Hell yeah.
Or like if Cooper is saying that it is like to all the fucking the fucking normies, that it is just like a fun loving story, and when you watch the movie, it's a fun loving story, and that I think doesn't have any irony to it. I think that's just kind of playful. But the story that we're reading here seems to operate on two levels at the same time, where it is like a fun romantic story that has at its core about fantasy and fun, but also at the same time with the life of the writer seems to introduce this whole undertone of how it's constructed. But I don't know. I think I lean more to seeing it as just like a fun story. That's just kind of like a little bit more meta at the end of the day. And I don't really know if it's a satire. I don't think we would think it's a satire if he didn't talk about Morgenstern's satire. Whether or not that's like an allusion to like how this is also a satire.
Right.
What about this? Was it a satire of satire?
No, that's trash.
I just blew your mind.
That's
It's
what
fine.
YouTube videos are.
No. I just blew your mind. It's fine.
It's a satire of a satire of a satire.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's what
That's
it is.
just like reposting memes. That's what that is.
Exactly.
Which I don't believe is actual real content.
You don't believe memes are real content?
I don't believe like meme people who just repost memes are actually creating content.
It's revolutionary, man.
No, they're just spreading content.
I can spread venereal diseases, but nobody's paying me money for it.
Yeah, well,
Where do you come up with this? That's the first thing that came in your head.
venereal disease.
Oh, outstanding.
You might be able to find someone to pay you for a coop on the dark web.
Oh, you could do that anywhere.
No,
It's interesting to think about this as a satire. I never did because it just doesn't. The actual Buttercup story. At no
Because
point.
you watched the movie first.
No,
That's
it never reads as it. Like, find me a point in which the actual fantasy story reads as some sort of satire of a fantasy
Never,
world.
man. Any fucking page. It's so.
No,
Like-
just because it's humorous doesn't mean that it's satire.
That's tough. That's a tough distinction to make.
The
I feel like
story,
it's another word, but not satire.
the story is humorous for sure, and it pokes fun
Part of
at
the
itself.
humor is the satire. Yeah. Exactly.
No, part of the humor is that this girl named her horse, and that the guy has
And that
6
she's
fingers,
dumb. And that all
And
she
has
is
a
pretty.
and there's like a zoo of death and insanity cliffs. Those are like very childish names. I don't think that inherently makes it a satire, just because it has
Childish or ironic, right?
and
I
It's
looked
hard
up
for-
the definition of satire right now.
Oh, I just
Okay,
did the same
noun.
thing, Dan.
Holy shit!
It
I don't
appears
wanna
to be
do
a
it,
noun.
guys.
A Google.
I don't want
war.
to. I don't want to tell you guys what I just looked up.
What's that? Venereal?
Please do.
Something about venereal porn.
What does it say, Dan?
Really bad.
It says
That's a weird kink, man.
satire is a noun. It's the use of humor, irony, exaggeration, or ridicule to expose and criticize people's stupidity or vices, particularly in the context of contemporary politics and other issues. What the hell? Let's see what Wikipedia. That's Google. Fuck.
Are you on like Ubin?
Oh no, that's no.
Dictionary?
Dan,
Yeah.
and everyone, I want you guys to know something. I have the
Yeah.
Oxford American and English. Well, it doesn't matter. Oxford American Dictionary, like the
Yeah.
fucking 2,000 page one, and every definition I look up on Google is the exact same definition in that dictionary, and that's what fucking English professors use. So
Okay.
Google
Really?
define is always going to be a fucking professional academic definition.
Damn.
Yeah, well, that's good to
Oh
know.
wow.
Yeah.
So read it again then.
Well, you don't have to, but
Here, I just looked up the Wikipedia one, and that here.
Wait.
All right, let's compare. Wikipedia says it's a genre of literature, sometimes graphic and performing arts, in which vices, follies, abuses, and shortcomings are held up to ridicule ideally with the intent of shaming individuals, corporations, government, or society itself into improvement. Although it's usually meant to be humorous, its greater purpose is often constructive social criticism using wit to draw attention to both particular and wider issues in society. Now, let's go
This is
back.
getting harder.
Okay, you know what? The more after you read that, I think I'm tending toward Coop's side.
Yeah, because it's okay. I'm sorry. I just want to say this. I feel it's then you finish reading the story, you still think it's beautiful, and you still think their love is beautiful. Therefore, it's not a satire.
Right. Well, because
Yeah, okay.
And
at
nothing
no
we're reading is unexpected.
and at no point are the characters in the story held up to fall. That I think is a staple of satire in which Buttercup would fall in love with Wesley. Because of that, she would now suffer a consequence because this is a satire of what it means to fall in love with a peasant. Like going back to again Voltaire, in which all those characters constantly are undergoing extreme situations and they're constantly undergoing toils and stress, but because he's making a satire of their religious belief, which is this world is the best possible world, they're constantly just smiling through all the pain, and that is what's funny and a satire about that idea.
I think this borders
I
more
think-
on absurdism rather than satire.
It's just a funny
part
love
of the
story.
satire is how absurd it is. Like Buttercup, I don't know how like actual their love was. It took her so long to figure that out. It took all this bullshit for her to figure out that she like loves this guy.
Doesn't that make
she's
it
been so-
realistic then?
It makes her more fickle. Like why does she have to
Again,
go through all
making
that
her more
drama?
realistic? Because
Well,
the
I mean, I
opposite
guess
of
it
that would be
depends
that
on
she
what
just knew
love is.
instantly.
Like, is love this finally stable thing that's like supposed to be like,
No.
a castle?
I don't think Goldman is aware enough to get to your level, Phil.
You
That
don't
is
think
true.
so?
No.
Yeah,
Dude, it takes a lot of fucking wokeness, dude. I squeeze my crystals every morning, every night.
read
Gotta stay woke.
read your horoscope in the paper every morning.
No breath of air doesn't have weed smoke in it. That's how woke you have to. You have to
Dude,
be that woke.
self-care, man. Self-care.
That's self-care
Self-care.
there, brother. That's right.
I think at the end of
Talking
the day,
about man's rights here. Man's rights.
Finally.
I think at the end of the day, what Goldman is doing is sort of more showcasing this idea of a loss of innocence by ending the book by saying, yeah, you know, life isn't fair. And then by reiterating the parts his father skipped and making that a central theme. I think the underlying actual point of the story is just to show that sometimes we all just need a good story, but it's always important to remember that there's no such thing as just a good story. That
I
life
also-
isn't fair. The horseshoe gets lost. Fezzik turns away.
I also think William Goldman really just likes adventure stories and wanted to write his own adventure story.
I agree.
Yeah.
And I think he wrote. I think
All the President's
You know-
Men, Butch Cassidy and Sundance Kid, those are all just like pure genre action movies.
and I think some of his other books are adventure books as well. And he was
Right.
really influenced by that. And
If he was like a
Like,
David
weird.
Foster Wallace who then just like wrote a Batman movie, I would be like suspicious of the Batman movie. I'd be
Yeah.
like, this feels potentially layered with something, and I need to read into this. But
His intention doesn't matter per se. Like we could still deconstruct the text,
Oh,
whether or not.
are we going down this
Yeah.
rabbit hole?
Well,
feel like-
Jordan
I
asked.
feel like
Jordan
having
fucking
class again.
asked about fucking postmodernism, and he got my boner going.
That's all we've
And
been able to
it
see on the
also
Hangout.
happened to coincide with my own interests in this. So.
well, I still don't think it is satire in that case, though, just because of the outcome.
I think
Whatever.
I would tend
almost
to
had
agree.
I'm really proud that I almost had Jordan.
You can get me
That's a good get, man. Care about the rest of you.
unassailable.
Is Dan still with us?
I am. My phone is on 20%, so the camera turned off.
Oh yeah, that's what's going on.
Well, I was gonna ask if we should get to to find
All
the
this
best,
talk
I'm
of
just getting mad.
postmodernism made me want to jack it. So I had to
Well, let's transition. I think
Dan's just masturbating off camera. Right?
Yep.
You do it
Yeah.
really quietly.
That's the nice thing about
Yeah.
podcasting is it's just audio, so you can do
Yeah.
whatever you want.
Dan,
with
you
your
can
hands.
show us. You won't. No one else will see.
I literally cannot turn my camera on.
No, this is a live
Mhm.
broadcast.
That's fine.
Don't-
That's fine.
don't-
I mean,
Oh,
whoever's
try it.
listening
Jordan.
right now.
Oh,
Oh,
I
no,
did
Jordan's
turn it
gone
on.
too. So Dan could turn it on. Weird. All of a sudden, Dan's camera's on.
Yeah.
Can we finish this? I'm just getting mad.
No. Okay. How about let's talk about?
Sorry, we freaking owned you, you noob.
So, here's a thought I had. We're talking about trying to pinpoint down this book. I think one reason it's hard to pinpoint is because there's the presence of so many different types of plots in this book. I remember I took a class in college where we had to get this big ass book called like the 7 Basic Plots in All Stories, and I feel like Goldman put a lot of these different types of plots into the book to weave this web of adventure and fantasy together. And I thought I was really impressed by, like, there's revenge and murder, there's rags to riches, there's like defeating the monster. There's basically a bunch of these different quests playing against and with each other throughout the whole book. And that's something I really enjoyed about it, trying to also seeing them kind of come together at the end as well. As far as like the plot lines, like we learn about the like here's an example. We learn about, you know, Inigo Montoya's background. His father Domingo was a master swordsman. They lived like a rural, poor life, and a 6-fingered nobleman killed him because he didn't make a sword good enough for him. And Inigo has spent his whole life training and searching for this 6-fingered man to enact revenge on his father. And how that ends up coming into play at the end with the Count, who's Prince Humperdinck's right-hand man, being that 6-fingered man. And like he ties up all these plots, like he tries to at least tie up all these plots at the end. I don't know. That's something that I really like about this book.
Well, it was really rewarding to have all those like ends tied up, especially after finishing season 8 of Game of Thrones, in which none of those
Okay.
strings were
Anyways,
tied up. No, I hear you, bud. I'm there with you. It was fun.
I think him being a screenwriter really lent to that. He knows how to tie up a story that people will be satisfied with.
Mhm.
And so this book was very, like, even though it was more detailed and a little more edgy and humorous than the movie necessarily, it still felt very Hollywood type of book, or a very movie-like type of book. And like keeping you engaged from scene to scene and then tying it up in some way at the end that you can kind of feel satisfied about.
Right.
So yeah.
Do you want to give our final thoughts?
No, okay.
I
I
was
mean,
hoping that was Eric.
Do we do this in alphabetical order, or no? Well, if Eric just gave his, that means what does
That
that
means we're just gonna wander around.
you guys really just
2
done
more
with it?
hours wondering what to do.
I mean, I probably will have to go because it's past midnight for me. But
All right.
all right.
Does that make you sad, Eric?
Yeah, it's kind of a short episode for my book.
We can keep
Hey,
going.
It's because your books suck.
God,
I,
fuck no.
I'm mad.
I'll go next because I wanted to say this. So every time we choose a book for, hold on, let me get my camera going because I'm talking. Okay, here we go. Every time we choose a different book for this podcast, I'm always wondering if I'm going to be able to find it here, and I usually can. I couldn't with the Argonauts, of course, but I had to really look for this one, and I couldn't find it, and I didn't understand why. And then I went, "Oh, let's check the kids section." It was either the children's or the teen section, or like young teens or something. I found it. They had a ton, but it was in the children's section.
Interesting.
which I was initially, I was not excited about this at all, to be honest, Eric. I was like, oh, fuck.
Yeah.
Great. We're going to read the fucking Princess Bride for our podcast. Fantastic. But no, like you guys pointed out, all of you said it's a fast read. It was incredibly fast. As soon as you start reading, you start laughing. So
As soon as you start reading, you start laughing.
that's a great blurb. This is but
No, hi, I'm Roger Ebert. And when I read this book, as soon as I started laughing.
you should put that on a sticker. No, but what I meant to say.
But then I got my pills recalibrated, and I never laugh anymore.
Right. I meant to sound more like
Good
an
try,
adult when I
Cooper.
said that. I guess what I meant to say is that my attitude toward the book did a 180 real quick.
Well, you know, I
was
can't-
initially not
Well,
excited. Jesus Christ, it's my final thought.
Jesus. Yeah, Eric, what's your deal?
Sorry, Sandra
Let the
Thompson.
man give his final thoughts.
It was a pleasant surprise for my initial reaction to having to read this book. Changed it completely. It was a pleasant surprise. I really enjoyed it, and the humor it's well done. And about halfway through, I realized that probably people of any age could probably read this and find it funny, which is weird because you don't really get that.
Yeah.
I don't read a lot of humorous things that I could show children. I don't know. That sounds weird too. Fuck. I'm
It's just child porn.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
What the?
Okay, Phil. Yeah, let's not put that up.
Let's cut this whole episode. Guys, let's just do another one about Sex at Dawn.
Let's cut out everything except for when we talk about Game of
That's what
Thrones.
I'm trying to say, Cooper.
This has pretty much just been a Sex at Dawn Part 2 podcast.
Yes.
No, I love this book. Last thoughts is so hard because I feel like I'm constantly giving my last thoughts with every sentence I say. But I enjoyed this book. It was
You're about
fun.
to die.
I'm always just on the verge, like. No, it was great.
These are my last thoughts.
But I couldn't put it down. I started reading it. Yeah, it was a quick read. It's quick. I think it was supposed to be quick. It's not supposed to be too complex, too hard. And it was enjoyable. This is one of the few books that I wish I had read before I ever saw the movie, because I think this would have just made my enjoyment of it so much more.
Maybe you would have understood it too.
Oh God, Phil.
Give it up.
Oh,
Let's hear
Cooper,
Phil's final
that's a
thoughts.
giggle word.
Roast him over the coals.
What? Yeah.
What?
Are you going ahead, Phil?
Well, I thought you were going to try to talk again.
Nope.
All right. I don't know. I thought it was fun. I definitely had an agenda when I was reading it. I had an after plan. Well, because of that citation, actually, because of what that Don guy said, and he was like, I don't know. I thought it was interesting that he cited that as kind of a foundation of his monogamy, actually, and I wondered how many people that was the case for. So I was definitely reading for that, and maybe that is a mistake. Like, that's kind of a common mistake if you're not actually looking at what's going on, or and instead you're trying to apply something that you've already decided. But that definitely informed how I was reading, and I thought the book lent itself pretty well to that kind of deconstruction, where, if you think of The Princess Bride, as the movie was presented without, that bookend by the author, damn, that was a train, but
You got it?
I got it. I thought that if you read it with that intro and read that the the Princess Bride story was actually just a big parody of like how people think of their marriages and their relationships in these terms and romanticize them in these terms. And yes, this is a fantasy, and it might be a satire, but the main point is that, like, regardless, sometimes people integrate these stories as part of their reality. So when I was reading from that standpoint, it did seem to deconstruct when you looked at like this guy's shitty marriage in the intro and like how he hated his son and how like yet he still wanted to pass on this story that like seemed to lead him to the point that he didn't really like. I don't know. So I do think the book was like a little bit more unstable than you guys seem to think, but that might also be because I just fucking have big axe to grind these days. So
Yeah.
those are my
Right.
final thoughts, and you
You
can
s-
roast me for them. But
It's like a hate the player,
what
not the
you're
game
saying-
type thing.
Yeah. So what you're saying, Philip, is you didn't give it a charitable reading.
Wait,
didn't
actually,
give it I mean, I enjoyed it, and I thought, I mean, I guess I understand what, or I don't understand what the point of. What do you mean charitable reading?
I actually
I
found
guess
something.
you just read Sex at Dawn and The Princess Bride.
That could be, but I don't know
I
why
think-
that doesn't have to be a charitable reading.
I think I just
Taking
saw
it
this
on
whole
its own
thing.
terms and such. But
I think I
keep
just found,
going.
I just saw this. I was on Goodreads. I was looking for like a 1-star review of this book.
Yeah.
I found one that might be interesting to you guys. It says, "This is one of those books that you have to really focus on while reading, or else you wouldn't understand it. Obviously, because I didn't give two shits about any of the characters, I got distracted often and ended up really confused. I would still like to try a few classics, though, but I probably won't try this one again." It was written by Phil Griffin? Case closed.
we should, in all honesty,
Very good.
I would love.
How did you find that?
I wrote that this morning. I was so mad. It's like, this book doesn't make any sense. Fuck these characters. They're just shells of people, just zombies in the story.
Static.
I might check out Moby Dick after checking out The Princess Bride. I don't know.
I don't
We'll
know.
see. I just wanted to check out some classics.
What does he mean by classics?
I don't know.
What's his idea of a classic? It's like one of 3 classics. Or...
Just Barnes and Noble publishing books. Those ones are like $5 for $7.
Yeah. Like these ones.
Yes, those bad daddies.
In all honesty, I would love to have us read 1-star reviews of the book that we choose
Oh,
going forward. I think that would be.
Was that an actual? Well, that's what Cooper's doing. Was that an actual one, Cooper?
That was an actual one.
No, that's what I love about that. That's perfect. That's great. That's introduction.
oh.
No, this was a
USF
really fun read.
Should I do my final thought?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did I get you ever, Jordan? Did I get you?
Huh?
Nothing. Go ahead.
You want to know if you won? Is that what you're asking?
I want to know if I won your heart, like Buttercup won my sister, even though she's a fucking bitch to him the whole time.
Let's see. Yeah. This was I was kind of in the same boat in a lot of respects as Dan and Phil. Dan in the sense that I was not that excited because I mean look at the copy I have here. I don't know if you guys have this
Yeah,
copy.
yeah.
It's like
Yeah, I know
it
the
looks
one.
like a romance
That's
novel.
what I have too.
That's true. I think it's
Yeah.
the movie cover. I think those are the actors.
No, it looks like a fantasy painting or something.
I mean it's like highly photoshopped. But, anyway,
Looks sick, dude. It looks really pretty.
Thanks, bro. It was, but okay. When I read it, it was super enjoyable. It was very enjoyable. It was actually hard to read something else that's more, oh god, literary. Afterwards, I had to kind of ease into it because this was so enjoyable and easy and fun.
Mhm.
And I literally was, when I had free time, I would try to read as much as I could. So it was definitely a page turner. I highly recommend it. The only thing I have to quibble with is sort of what Phil was saying about. I don't know. I feel
Monogamy?
like
Was it monogamy?
No, it wasn't monogamy, but maybe indirectly, but the sense that he's making fun of love, but also approving of it at the same time. It seems like mixed messaging. That was one thing, but
Like he could have
it was
ratcheted down on his message a little bit more with like a second pass through or something.
I mean, it would have been nice if he would have made the end more unequivocally fucked up,
Right.
and sort of had shown that love is not this romantic archetype that we make it out to be.
Right.
And that there is such thing as love, but it's something that might be more similar to his love for his son, or I don't fucking know. I don't know. Maybe that is a thing you can interpret in this book. Anyway, it was really fun. It was enjoyable. I would. It's not like a high literary novel by any means, but it doesn't mean it's something that people should read. And
Should read.
enjoyable.
Yeah.
Fiend.
Hell yeah.
Well, I guess
Everybody?
no, not me.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I guess I'll end it out since I picked the book. I mean, the reason I picked this book is, like all of us, I was very familiar with the movie for a long time, and I was really interested to see what the book was like. And I honestly I wasn't sure. I didn't realize how close it would be as far as even the grandpa in the movie reading to his grandson being so similar to the story that William Goldman makes up as like the framework of the novel. And so I really enjoyed being able to see all the similarities between the two, and that humor is not lost between the book and the movie, because that's something I always loved about it. And this book really plays on my absurd sensibilities, and I really enjoyed just going through 50, 60 pages at a time and just laughing and enjoying the story. And it's definitely not a high literary read, but I figure I got to ground us a little bit, guys, and pick some more crowd-friendly books besides all these heavy philosophical books.
Whatever.
And after Sex at Dawn, we need to kind of ease our listeners back in a little bit.
Hello out there, all of our listeners. Thank you.
Hi, Jack.
Hi, Jack.
Hey, Jack.
Hey, I don't know. We actually have 2,500 downloads on our page for
Jesus Christ.
our plays. I think
That's
it's
way
plays.
too much. That's way too much.
So
Dude,
yeah,
that's like fucking Lil Wayne shit, dude. Like on his podcast, look on his shit.
Dude, are we on fire then?
We're on fire.
We're smoldering. Let's say
We should do a biography next
there you go. Different types of books. Yeah,
of
that's-
Amelia Earhart.
how does that one end?
I'm not gonna spoil the ending,
But
but
yeah.
she gets stabbed by her lover.
Oh, is that how it ends?
That's how something ends.
In a plane?
Oh, you're bad. You're sweet.
So, anyways, and my final thoughts. I highly recommend this book, especially.
Oh no, wait. Oh, go ahead. Yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
It's okay. It's okay. Just for a fun read to sit down and kind of enjoy yourself in a book.
Yeah.
I think it's a great novel for that. And I was really impressed by his plot devices using his own fictional life to framework this, and a fictional author and a fictional abridging. I think those type of devices are so creative and unique that I've not seen in any other book. That his craft of writing, I think, was really good and really enjoyable to go through.
Yeah.
What he does very well.
Right, and
Yes.
I think even more than what you guys were trying to dig at with with more thematic stuff and postmodern agendas, is that he's just a really damn good writer, and that he can keep his audience engaged really well through his use of language and crafting of his words. Yeah.
Agreed.
And I love the characters. The characters always win me over in books.
Yeah, a good character will always sell.
Yeah, so
Phil,
I
what
thought
were
it
you
was
getting all
fun read.
excited about?
My line was something about how the explosion of this book is reminds me in the stupidity of the love in it. Reminds me of the stupidity of Game of Thrones and how
Okay.
we knew it was stupid
Okay.
all along. It was something I used to numb myself after a very horrible personal matter in the last year. And it was great for that, but when it ended,
the
much
Princess
like
Bride?
how the love story ended, it was all a lie.
So
it
you've
was all
been
a
using the
waste.
Princess Bride to numb your pain?
Well, Game of Thrones.
No, I know. I was fucking with you.
But I also have to say, for the
Daenerys
time,
dies.
that life isn't fair. It's just fair than death. That's all.
No! Bill!
How do you know I'm being for real?
I don't
anyway?
know.
Damn.
I don't. I'm just gonna forget you said anything. La 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 la. I'm gonna make a really awful noise if you keep talking about it.
All right.
All right.
I thought
all
that's
right.
just your voice. Are you just gonna keep talking? Is that
Yeah, exactly.
All right, let's sign off. Cooper, it's
Okay,
your favorite sign off move. It's the bye.
This is my favorite
So are
part.
we doing?
Yeah, you
40
love
Wait.
saying.
I was for my book.
Yeah.
I guess I was gonna go next. Dan and we
Yeah.
talked earlier.
Create like a draft pick.
No, it's a protest
Yeah.
book about putting Harriet S. Tubman on the $20 bill.
Wait, it's a book
Are you being
protesting
serious?
putting
Like, what is that Italian book?
Huh? The fascist book?
Yeah.
No, they're putting Harriet S. Tubman on the $20 bill, subverting the American cause. So, did you know that?
Right.
I'd heard inklings of it through the
Well,
grapevine.
I mean, from what I've read about Andrew Jackson, he was kind of a piece of shit.
Well, it's okay because Donald Trump
From
is
a-
gonna.
Harriet
from
Tubman
happening
wasn't, a basket of roses either.
That's like, oh, damn it. I've always heard about her.
I'm joking. I'm joking.
Woo!
I'm fucking joking.
No, I'll let you guys know what it is.
Oh, okay,
That's
okay.
good.
Well, it's gonna be Jordan's pick next time. So
Yeah, I'll text I'll text you, Eric, and you
expect
can
something
text them
really,
or something.
expect something really dense and heady. And
Honestly, I love
I-
Harriet.
I'm just kidding. I'm just fucking with you, Jordan.
Harriet S. Tubman.
We're
Yeah, I'll
finally
let you know.
doing the fat black lady shit.
Okay, we should really get off now.
All right, I'm gonna go to bed.
All right, let's everyone
Bye,
say
guys.
goodbye.
Good
All
night,
right.
Jordan.
Thank you.
All right, guys.
Good night.
Bye.
Thank you.
Peace out.
Bye.
We should end every podcast by saying good night to Jordan.
Good night,
Good
Jordan.
night, Jordan.
Bye.
Thank you.
Are we?
He's gone.
gone.
He's gone.
All right.
That was a good one. Eric, I hope you feel like we didn't beat up on your book.
No.
I don't think we did. I think we got a good stuff
No,
out of it.
I mean,
It was
it's
always
not-
gonna be hard trying to like discuss plot just because it is like such a well-known.
Yeah. No, totally. It definitely wasn't a higher literary read, but I mean, all of our reading styles, all of our reading choices are different, and I think it's good to have like more fun pop culture books in with our mix sometimes.
Of course.
And
Okay.
so I'm that guy. I'm just gonna keep picking books that have movies.
No, this was a good read. Like it was fun.
Oh yeah, it was a great read. It was a nice kind of mix up from because we had gone like kind of sciencey with Sex at Dawn and
Yeah.
nonfiction before, so this was like a nice jump back into like some fantasy fiction.
Yeah, it was good. I enjoyed it. I'm looking forward to what Jordan has to pick.
Yeah, I like how we all have different varying choices. I think that makes it more fun.
should we talk real quick about our summer plan? Just because,
Yeah.
I mean, my summer's about to get pretty busy, and Dry Fest is coming up, and that typically is the time. I mean, as far as like last year, we took a little bit of a break for Dry Fest. Are we shooting for like this? Not this one, but the one that Jordan's, being the last one for a bit, because that's going to be in June.
Mine, I'm supposed to go after Jordan, and mine's going to be like 100 pages.
Oh, cool. Okay, so should we just shoot for 2 more then, and then regroup
I think we
then?
could just. Why don't we try not to do it?
We're not going to do Dry Fest this year?
I mean,
No, but we do need to get on Dry Fest stuff.
Yeah. But wait, Phil, what did you say?
why do we have to take a break? Do we have to take a break?
I don't think so.
Just because of the nature of how busy.
I just was thinking because last year we took a little bit of a hiatus.
On accident, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
think-
well, our lives just got once I think we took a little bit of a break, and then once that it was just hard to get back into the swing of things.
I'll have a lot of time this summer, so I think.
Yeah, if we
I'm
don't
down
want
to
to
keep going.
if we don't want to schedule a break, I just was remembering thinking back to last year.
Yeah, yeah.
But if everybody's fine with trying to shoot for it,
Let's try this summer not to break and see if we can do it.
yeah.
I mean, we can't really afford to, as far as
Yeah.
like we have shitty enough fucking rate output.
Yeah.
But I probably will put a pause on a lot of like normal waste feature front page stuff
Yeah.
for Dry Fest interviews.
Yeah.
Except we can still do podcast stuff.
Of course. That all sounds good.
Yeah.
Eric, can you help me with Dry Fest stuff then a little bit?
Yeah. Sorry, I have been meaning to. I need to send a message out to everybody for interviews. Will you
Do you
send?
know? Have I connected you with those sheets and shit?
No, you have not yet.
I'll do that right
Okay, yeah. If you want to send me
now.
those,
I just need to start, like, literally the only thing that's kept me from doing it is because I have to go into an Excel sheet and start doing shit. So,
Okay.
like, all we have to do is start plugging in their emails and figuring out that.
Yeah.
So,
Band emails and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can do that, and then I'll like send a group message to all of us who want to do interviews. Coop and Dan, will you be able to do interviews?
I'm not gonna say yes or no to interviews yet.
That's fine. No, you don't have to commit. I'm just asking.
Yeah. No, I'm committing to all the graphics and helping Fel with whatever else he needs. But
Okay, yeah, then don't worry about interviews. Dan, can you do interviews?
Sure.
Okay, I'll probably include you on a Facebook group chat with like probably get Austin and Nels and Kelly and a few other people.
How many questions is it per band? Is it like
Just like 6 to 10.
10.
You want to do 10, like a hard 10?
Alrighty. I'll
Yeah.
look through what,
And
just like last year. I'll look through what you guys have done, and I'll try to make my own.
okay,
Yeah.
and then maybe have Mary Kay do visual artists. And will she have time to do that? Phil?
Yeah.
I think so. Looks
And-
like all she does is just smoke weed.
Yeah, that's true. And then obviously Anna and Pete can handle poets. And have you been talking to Will Thomas about comedians?